Yes.
There we are. Okay, thank you. Right, welcome everybody. Welcome members of the committee and other scrutiny members and other wider members of council who have been invited to this meeting to scrutinise the budget and medium-term financial plan. So, first item on the agenda, apologies for absence. Sean, have you got any from the committee? Sean?
No apologies, Chair.
Okay, thank you. 2, disclosure of members' interests. Any electronic hands or any other kind of hands? No? Okay, great. We'll move straight on to the main business then. This is the report of the Executive Director of Finance for the budget 2021 and medium-term financial plan 2021 to 2024. Oh, sorry. I see Councillor Bowman had his hand up. Did you? Councillor Bowman? No, that's a mistake. Councillor Hill, you're sort of waving.
Thank you, Chair. It was just with register of interest. I'm sure it's beyond what's necessary, but there's a line in the budget about Port of Berwick, and I'm on the Harbour Commissioners, so I just thought I'd say that.
Thank you, Georgina. We can note that. Anybody else before I move on? No, I can't see any other hands. No. Right. Okay. I can ask the leader, Councillor Sanderson, to present this report, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members. I'd like to begin by thanking all our staff across the council, answering phones, driving the gritter wagons, unblocking drains that are flooded, caring for the vulnerable and looking after our young people. Thanks to each and every one of them. We have wanted to ensure that the budget this year does not impact upon their well-being. As far as we have been able to do that, we've achieved that, and there are no compulsory redundancies this year. This year we have consulted far more than ever before on the budget. Obviously, we will be going through this process through the local area councils and through council. But for the first time this year, we held a virtual public question and answer session, which was well attended and helpful. And for the first time, we held an online Have Your Say event, which ran from early December till the middle of January. I want to thank the hundreds of people who took part in that. I'm very grateful for them sparing their time to do it, and their input was very helpful. And the results underlined our key aims to see spending levels in adults, children, and frontline local services remain or increase. And so we have increased the gross budgets in those services from 780 million to 801 million, 5.4 more on adult social care, 8.5 million more on children's services, and 3.1 on local services. Against that, we have found £8 million of savings in efficiencies and income generation. We have committed to new and exciting projects across the council, and I would like, if I may, just to touch on some of those that are appearing in the capital programme in front of you. We know about the new schools in Hexham and Pontioland, and you can see from the capital programme just how much money is allocated to new schools in other areas. At a time when councils across the country are cutting back in leisure services, we are actually investing in ours. And you can see that if you travel to Berwick and see the new beautiful leisure centre being built there, the one that has started work in Morpeth. And we will also be spending money on repairing and renovating other leisure centres, places like Newbiggin and Cramlington. And at a time when councils across the country are closing public toilets, we see those as vital and really important for our county. So we are investing and found £1 million more in our capital programme for public toilets. Even our strongest and most negative critics can't find fault, I don't think, in what we've done with our climate change action plan. Very bold, very ambitious, and we've allocated significant funds in the capital programme to help us move forward with that. And all I can say is, again, thank you to that small but brilliant team who are leading on our climate change work and allowing us to be one of the leaders in the country on climate change proactive work. We've invested £110 million over 4 years on our roads and pavements and cycleways, and we continue to do that this coming year. We also are investing 1.5 million in walking and cycling, including work on a number of cycleways across the county. Our car parking programme has gone fantastically well, as I'm sure those of you representing towns that have got new car parks will agree. And we have a great programme that is either being delivered or is in process across the county, in Amble, in Berwick, Alnwick, Craster, Sea Houses, Morpeth and Hexham. We are investing in Blythe with town deals being scoped for Ashington and Bedlington. Borderlands will bring us brilliant new investment to the Tweed area, to Wooler and Alnwick. And our largest cross-border, cross-council NHLF funded project at the Union Chain Bridge near Berwick proceeds apace. Our parks programme has continued and will continue this coming year, and how valuable the parks have proved to be for our residents in this very difficult year. Our glass recycling pilot is going well, and we are investing in the multi-million-pound clear-up of Linemouth Beach, which has been left as it is for too long. The Northumberland line will transform transport between the southeast of the county to Newcastle and beyond, and is testament to the good working between this council, North of Tyne Combined Authority and government. And just round the corner, there are potentially thousands of new jobs waiting to bring wealth and jobs to our county. So, Mr. Chairman, to sum up, this budget is about involving the public. It's been about supporting our staff, investing in our county from border to border, encouraging positivity, not negativity, into what we try and do for all those people that are watching us and watch what we try and do. I'm very proud of this budget, Mr. Chairman, and I hope others will be also. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn, for that overview. I think I've got a hand up from the portfolio holder. I think wants to say a few words, and then we'll go on to questions.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to reinforce everything that Glenn said. In particular, I'd just like to thank all of the officers who have had significant input into this. It's a challenging process at the best of times, but in the midst of a COVID pandemic, with all of the uncertainty we're facing, it's particularly challenging. So officers across all departments, my cabinet colleagues have all played a full part in producing this budget. I also like to thank all the members that have participated in the local area council presentations and provided some challenge there and some good questions, and all of the members of the public that have contributed to this process as well, as Glenn has set out. We should also thank the government. We've had in the COVID year, we've had significant support from government to underpin the extra costs of running the council, and I think we had a more generous settlement in December than any of us had really hoped for, which is great. And we can see that the government are delivering on their promise to sort of deliver significant regeneration opportunities in our area, and I think that's really important. We're coming out of COVID, and in a post-COVID world, we must sort of focus on the important things: economic regeneration, creating jobs, and basically offering better opportunities for the people that live in our county. So like Glenn, I wholeheartedly support these proposals, and we will all be happy to. I think we've got all of the cabinet members on the call. We'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Right, so do we have any members or would like to ask any questions about the presentation, or indeed the papers, the budget that have been circulated? Do I have some hands? Anybody? Go on, someone must want to go first. Oh, Councillor Hill.
Councillor Grimshaw actually had her hand up. No, non-electronic first.
Oh, sorry, I can't see it. Okay, sorry, Councillor Grimshaw. I'll let you go first.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a question to Councillor Oliver. I've asked our last corporate scrutiny meeting, the one before last, to furnish us with the evidence of what indeed the public's response was to your efficiency or / cuts would be. And to date, I was promised that we would have that report, and we haven't. So just interested to see what the residents thought of your, process that you had sent everybody out surveys, you had online, like questions and answers. We haven't actually got that evidence in front of us to see if indeed residents agreed with these efficiency / cuts. So before we can move ahead to see if we totally agree with your budget or not, we haven't got the evidence from the residents, and I think it would be remiss of me not to ask the question as to why we haven't got these in front of us, or are they not looking very good for your administration, and people don't want to see cuts to the likes of adult services, etc. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Grimshaw. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Councillor Grimshaw. Yeah, I think Glenn touched upon the consultation in his introduction, and I think it's we have had a summary of responses, and as Glenn said, I think what's interesting is that the services that we see as essential frontline services are also the services that the public see as essential frontline services, and we've increased the overall spending in those areas. So in adults, it's a circa £5 million increase. In children's, it's a circa £10 million increase, and in local services, it's a circa £3.5 million increase. So I think to talk about cuts is obviously, I mean, I can understand why you do it. We're all politicians, but I think I would rather take a more optimistic outlook and look at how we're increasing spending in those key areas.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, may I come back on that? Yeah, with all due respect,
yes, okay.
With all due respect, Councillor Oliver, you did say you would furnish us with the report, and it probably will be recorded, and we haven't. And it would just be interesting to see what actually the residents found, whether to be acceptable or not, because our residents has as much input in this as Councillor Sanderson rightly so put out to the members of the public. And to date, we haven't received what your survey, what
that's fine. Yeah.
Is. So I would plead again for the residents and indeed ourselves as members to be able to look at this survey. Thank you.
I will. We have seen a draft report, sort of summary of the collation of all of the responses, and we will circulate something to all members ahead of the council meeting later on this month. That's absolutely fine. But just to point out, it wasn't a consultation on efficiencies or savings. It was a consultation on the whole budget, and that and I think the public have responded really positively to that consultation.
Well, I just hope I'll find out in due course. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Right, okay, next on the list we have Georgina.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the fact that we're all invited to ask questions at this meeting. I'm going to actually hang fire on my main concerns about the budget. I've got meetings with officers and others this week, so I'll hang fire on that, but I'm certainly, unfortunately, not in a position to be welcoming this budget. I have 1 point and 2 quick questions, if I may. Yep. The first one to Glenn, if I could just pick you up on a bad habit you have, I'm afraid, of phrasing everything about negativity and positivity, because basically what you're doing is setting up anyone who's scrutinizing and has got criticism. You can say, oh, you're being negative, and at the same time encouraging the sycophants. Oh, isn't this marvelous? I don't think framing a debate about being negative and positive is particularly constructive, particularly in a setting of a scrutiny meeting. The second, well, it's a question. You talk about climate change. I personally, and I've mentioned this before, in terms of our priorities, residents have raised thousands and thousands of issues, some of them quite obscure with me over the years, and I don't think one has ever mentioned climate change. So I don't know why people seem to think this is right at the top of the priorities. But on that, if climate change emergency is such a crucial issue, why are we building so many new car parks? And my final question is on page 31, to the middle way down, loans to third parties, 8.797 million, additional resources to fund the anticipated loan finance support for Advanced Northumberland. Is that to do with running costs, a regeneration project, or is it to do with the Baron's legal claim?
Okay, thank you. Can I ask Councillor Sanson to answer the first point, and then maybe Councillor Wearmouth to answer the second one?
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm grateful to the councillor for talking to me about positivity and negativity, and perhaps we can discuss that and how that what that really looks like at another time. So far as climate change is concerned, it is singularly the most important thing for this administration to tackle. We have got to make sure that all members and all staff are fully signed up to doing the best they can over the coming year to meet our targets. And I'm actually really heartened by how important this is to the younger generation in Northumberland, who continually encourage me in the work that we're doing and the importance we place on dealing with climate change effectively and thoroughly. So it is hugely important for all of us and for our children and for our children's children. It will remain very much a priority. I think so far as the car parks question is concerned, yes, you're quite right. We have succeeded in building, I think it's around about 800 new car parking spaces. The reason for that, two. First of all, to encourage our tourism industry to allow parking places to take place in those small villages that need car parking space to avoid those people who come to visit and parking in the wrong areas, parking dangerously, parking on double yellow lines. Secondly, it's very important to have more car parking spaces to encourage our market towns to prosper as far as we are able to. So by having that and the extra car parking spaces, it allows people to come, to travel, to shop locally. Of course, rural areas, most people realise, does need to have the use of a motor car. You can't get away with relying on public transport, but you can, of course, where possible, switch your type of transportation from internal combustion to electric. And that is why we are putting more and more car parking charges into our car parks, so that we are encouraging more and more use of electric vehicles. On the other point, I'll pass on to Councillor Oliver.
Okay, Councillor Wearmouth, can you answer the point about page 31 of the report?
I can pick that up if you like, Richard. But basically, that figure is basically a provision for regeneration projects that Advance is carrying out.
So it's nothing to do with the Farron's claim.
No, that figure's nothing to do with the Count Farron's claim, and I don't think we should be discussing claims.
Yeah, that's correct.
We're talking about the allocation
actually
of
commercial and
money.
Excuse me, it's a commercially sensitive thing. If you need to discuss it, you would probably be best moving into closed session. Can I just ask that? Thank you.
You've confirmed that 8 million is for a regeneration project.
Yes, that's the correct. Right. Okay. Well, thank you. Next on the list we have Councillor Rees. Jeff, I can't see you really.
Hi, I've just been sitting with my camera off, Chair.
Oh, there you are. I can see you now. Okay.
I need a haircut, so. Right, let's talk about the budget, shall we? Because that's why we're here. I'm just starting. I've got a series of questions. Is that all right? And then they can be answered. So, first of all, I'm on page 3. Which will tell you something. How long we're going to be here? Yeah. I'm just looking at recommendation 14, which is the non-collection rate. which we normally do really well. But I see the increases, they're predicting a 1% instead of a 0.7%. So I was just wondering, do we think that's enough? Because the provision for the recommendation 15 is about the recovery of 2.376 million of unpaid council tax, basically. So just wondering what the balance between those two recommendations is.
Well, should we do each one at a time so we can move? So yeah, saves moving around in the paper. So who would like to? Nick, would you like to answer?
I think well, I'll give you my. This is quite a technical question, so I'll give you my best stab at answering it, and then if I'm, and then it may be that Chris or Alison would like to add something. But I think yes, obviously we are expecting, or we are experiencing and expecting an impact of COVID, and hence the increase to 1%. I think those two figures in recommendations 14 and 15 are effectively, you know, they are sort of synchronized and would reconcile back to each other. But I couldn't for a moment begin to explain how that would be done. But I'm pretty sure in all of the discussions I've had about this, that you know, the sort of underlying calculations are based on the same assumptions.
Okay.
Chris, is that a reasonable summary?
Chris, just
yeah, that's correct, Councillor. That's a reasonable summary. I mean, our officer recommendation is a sufficiently prudent change in the collection rate, coupled with the bad debt provision we've made. The recommendation 15 obviously relates to the current financial year and the collection fund for this current year being carried forward in the next 3 years. So this is about the tax base assumptions for next year and beyond.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so basically what we're saying is there's 1% that we're not going to collect, but we're going to pursue people for 2.376 million. Is that what that says?
No, the 2.376 is the estimated collection fund deficit for last financial year, and in a change from normal years, it doesn't crystallise in the general fund in the next financial year. The government's allowing us to phase over 3 financial years. So we won't know how much of that is actually ultimately recoverable until all recovery action has progressed through the various processes.
Yeah, sorry, I know these are technical questions, and as probably people going to sleep already, but perhaps I'm not making myself clear. Perhaps I'll write to you. I'll give it one more try.
Okay.
1% is what you're saying we're never going to collect in this coming year.
It's an estimating reduction around our assumptions in the council tax. So in a normal year, it'd be 0.7%.
Yeah,
so
what I'm saying is, you're now saying we are not going to. There's 1%. We're not going to. You just know we're never going to get it. But you're going to try and get 2.376 million through bailiffs and letters and etc. etc.
We would pursue all council tax due in line with the statutory requirements, whether it's the last year or the current financial year and beyond. The provision, I suppose, is wider than just non-collection. It's a provision against some of the assumptions we make. So we make assumptions around levels of council tax support entitlement, around tax base growth. So it's a prudent offset of some of those growth assumptions, as well as not just in relation to fully non-payment of council tax.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it's not prudent. I'm just trying to get it in my own head about basically the council is running towards, if you know, I'm not saying this budget isn't going to work, because they usually do. There'll be an underspend, and you know, in the end of the day, when the laundry's done, it'll all be fine. But we're moving further towards the edge of the cliff than we would normally. We're assuming that we're not going to collect 1%. We're assuming that we're going to get that. We're going to send letters out. We're going to put the bailiffs in. We're going to get 2.376 million. So that's fine.
Okay. You have some more?
Yeah, I think it's just a point that the collection fund and the non-collection rate are sort of two different things. I think the way I think about it in simplistic terms is that you have a collection fund deficit, and that determines the assumptions you make about the in the following year. And what basically is happening this year is that sort of adjustment is being spread over 3 years so that it doesn't impact so heavily, and that's a sort of one-off concession that the government are allowing local authorities to make, just so that they smooth out the impact of COVID on their budgets. So we wouldn't have to have, if we were looking for offsetting savings somewhere else, they would not have to be so dramatic in the COVID world, because there's an acknowledgement this is a one-off impact of COVID.
Okay, I think
Well, the 3-year impact of COVID actually, but
Well, yes, yes, sorry, yeah.
How many angels are dancing on the head of the pig?
Okay, Councillor Reid, page 4, or we're moving further forward.
Recommendation 17.
On page 3.
Actually, are you allowed, because this administration's only got, I don't know, weeks left, May, so you'll be gone after that. So are you able to tell the next council that it has to put the council tax up by 1.25% for the adult social care services? Can you dictate from the grid?
Well, first of all, I'm much more optimistic than you, I think, and I don't think this is the end of this administration. I think we're all going to have some people are going to have a happy surprise in May, but were that to be the case, obviously it would be up to any incoming administration, hopefully a Conservative administration, to make decisions each year about the budget. So the way it works is you set a firm budget for 1 year, and then there's a 2-year medium-term financial plan. So if by some strange freak of circumstances we weren't re-elected, then I think it would be another administration could make changes to that, and we are not fixing anything in stone for a future administration.
Yeah, but sorry, you are. That recommendation 17 says that you're going to increase the council tax by 1.25% for adult social care next year. That's what it says. So
yeah.
It's maybe.
But then a new administration can come in and overrule that. I mean, everything in this budget.
Why have it?
Well, it's because you're required to have assumptions about the second and third year. Otherwise, it would simply be a 1-year budget without a medium-term financial plan. So it's just the same as all of the capital things. They could change. There'll be slippage, etc., etc.
Yeah, I accept that, but I think that recommendation should have been softer then, because you can't.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that.
Right. So there are 47 recommendations, Chair, which as usual blind us with science and figures, but what this whole thing boils down to is Appendix 7 and Appendix 13, which is really what all this is about, isn't it? And Appendix 7 is the £8.172 million worth of efficiencies.
Could you just give us the page number there, please?
Yeah, it's 54 and 55.
Okay, thanks.
Now, what worries me about all of that £8 million is that there is not one solid thing there at all. Everything is a review or a look at or a redo. I have not seen one piece of paper that tells me that there's been a review of telecare services and we can save £400,000. I haven't seen the proof of that at all. All I've got written here is review of telecare services, £400,000. Has it begun? Has it started? Are we halfway through it? Is that £400,000 in year? So if you haven't started it, it's going to take till October to get it done. And then you're going to, then you say it's going to save you 400,000 quid. Well, you know, this whole thing is, to me, the whole thing is, we need to save 8 million quid. Well, stick it down, stick reviews down on pieces of paper till you get 8 million quid. We'll get it through council. We'll send people a bill that increases their council tax by 3.74%. It's legal because it's been through council and it's on a piece of paper, but there is no, this is the question, sorry, Chair, I'm on me.
Yeah, that's fine.
Budget day rant.
It's an annual tradition, Jeff, we love it.
So what worries me is that through all of this, Appendix 7 is actually just a wish list. Can anybody, any of the portfolio holders point to something and say, removal of a software license, £100,000. Can somebody point to something in some report somewhere that says that's actually doable, or it's done? Or can anybody on the executive, looking at pages 54 and 55, point to something that's actually been done or is started or anything?
Okay, that's a good challenge.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. I mean, I think we had a very, very similar conversation this time last year and possibly even the year before, and I do welcome that challenge. I think what I would say is that every year this administration has delivered on its budget. So we have come in on target or marginally below target, or better than target, I would say, every year. The savings that are set out in here are all identified. You're quite right to say that they're all at different stages in terms of their development. Some of them have actually been or been implemented, some of them are being implemented, and so on. But I think there is, there's an understanding, and any portfolio holder in the cabinet would be able to probably give you specifics on any one of those savings. Picking up the one you mentioned in terms of software licenses, there's a £69,000 removal of software license for Gandlake software, no longer used required. And then the other 100,000 that you referred to is a review of software licenses. We have well, not that new, but a new-ish director of IT who's been taking a look across all of the software that we use as a council. There's a move towards more open source software. There's a move towards more hosting in the cloud, and so that will bring significant savings. And the team, the IT team, has been doing some amazing work on that, and they're absolutely confident that that 100,000 saving can be delivered, and it'll be across a number of different sort of licensing areas.
Thank you, Nick. I think Veronica's got a hand up. She's got a concrete example she can give us. Veronica.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure it's concrete, but I just wanted to answer Councillor Reid. Councillor Reid, you may remember we did a review of telecare in your administration as well, and at that point there was a significant loss in telecare, and some of that was as you know, sorted out. It is a sort of ongoing review. There are in all of the adult services budget, these are the least estimate. I don't know if I've got that the right way round. These are figures that we are sure can be delivered without any loss of services. So there is already on telecare, there is a picture across. Some of the consultation can only be done once we've agreed the budget, but there's an ongoing review of it, and we can see where there are differences in charging. Obviously any difference in charging, like I say, would go out to consultation, and some is just a move around. It is the budget on telecare is subsidised by adult services, and this would just lessen the subsidy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you, Veronica.
And the last thing before we just go on to the capital programme, I'm sure you're glad to hear, is the increase in planning income of £400,000. Is that just because of putting the charges up, or is it because we're expecting more people to be putting planning applications in?
Well, Councillor Riddle's got his hand up for that one. Councillor Riddle?
Thank you, Councillor Reid, for that one. That one is, as you know, planning fees are set by government nationally. We don't control them. We can't increase them. That's set in stone. What the 400,000 is, we're very confident that because of all of the great interest there is in development at the moment, that these are very realistic assumptions of increased planning income from increased planning application fees.
Okay, thank you.
But that assumes that that's profit, doesn't it? Because if it costs you £350,000 to process all those applications, you're only 50 up. So
no, that is these are figures that have been produced by our professional officers, and they are confident that we are very likely to hit those targets.
No, sorry, you misunderstand what I'm saying. What I'm saying, John, is that these are, well, it's not an efficiency, is it? It's an increase in business, and presumably that £400,000, all of these efficiencies are net.
Yeah.
Right. So this is, so all of them save us money, apart from that one, which makes us money.
That one is increased income. You're quite correct there, Jeff.
But how much is it? How much is it going to cost us?
But we're not expecting to have very much in the way of increased costs against that income. That is what we expect to be the increase in our.
So basically, what you're saying is the cost of running planning is going to be more or less the same as it is, but we're going to increase the income by £400,000, which is, I mean, I don't know what percentage of income that is. I don't know whether it's, 50% or 10 or 5, but what you're telling me is that the planning is going to make £400,000 a year more.
Yes, I am telling you that.
Okay,
Yeah.
well,
It's the net increase.
Planning performance agreements, and for some reason, Northumberland have never actually charged for planning performance agreements in the past, and that is, an opportunity to make a substantial amount of money to give, particularly the bigger developers, certainty that they can have the decision, whatever that decision will be, delivered by a certain date. So yes, I'm very confident that these figures are robust. Thank you, Chairman.
Am I speaking Dutch or something? What? You don't even understand the point I'm making is that you're expecting planning not to cost you any more money, but you are going to make £400,000 more. And if you're doing that, somebody is going to have to work a hell of a lot harder than they are now. And I thought planning was kind of, the government wanted it to be kind of cost neutral. We're not supposed to make any money out of planning. We're just supposed to cover our costs. I thought. Okay,
Councillor, briefly.
I think Councillor Reid and Councillor Riddle are both correct. I think it is a net. I think you're effectively saying the same thing. So it's the net increase in income. So I don't have to hand the precise overall forecast increase in income, but this is the net contribution to the council's budget. So that would include, it would be after any increase in costs. And we could probably get a very simple breakdown of 3 figures: increase in costs, increase in income, and then the net impact. And the net impact would be that 400,000 figure. So you are correct, and John's also correct, because basically it's as a result of increased economic activity.
Okay, I think that we understood that now. Okay.
Well, I'm not sure. I thought that planning was not supposed to make money. That was that was my understanding. But anyway, so you'll be glad to know that I'm nearly at the end now. I'm at appendix 13, which is the capital programme.
And what page number have we got for that?
That page number is 91.
91, okay.
And it carries on over a couple of pages.
Yep.
So, you know, all of the money that we're spending on sports centres and, well, particularly sports centres and leisure stuff. How much, after all these things are built, how much will the running costs and the staffing costs of this add to our base budget, the revenue account, in other words, which is under quite a bit of pressure?
Okay.
Yeah, so I think all of the revenue impacts of all of the activity in the capital programme have been taken account of in the revenue part of the budget. So if we would take the, I imagine actually in most cases, many of those capital investments will reduce running costs. So if you take a shiny new leisure centre in Berwick, it's probably going to be cheaper to run than the old underinvested, slightly decrepit leisure centre in Berwick. So I think that's probably, but just to assure you that all of those, the revenue impact of all of the capital programme has been taken account of in the revenue budget.
Excellent. And obviously there's stuff in here, you know, I hate, so I'm not gonna bring that up. You must be bored with it by now. But the borderlands stuff, we are the accountable body. That's why Carlisle Station's there and the other things. But can I just say, I'm not a fan of giving some of the richest families in the country public money. You know, if you want to build a tourist attraction, well, use your own money, not mine. But that's just a, you know, it's a mean comment.
Surely not.
I think that's probably. I mean, obviously, you realise that could go on forever. But,
surely not.
Oh yes, but I think all in all, you know, the officers as usual have done a good job of pulling the irons out of the fire. It's hard going this though, and I'm not certain that. Well, I know for a fact that this is, you know, that 8 million pounds worth of savings is just to get you over the line. I mean, there's 10 or 11 or 12 to find next year. And so you're just putting off the day where you're actually going to, well, somebody's going to have to actually get a grip of this.
Okay.
I don't think you should have gone for the full maximum council tax. I think there are pressures on our residents that, you know, are going to last for years. And I think us just adding to the financial burden is.
Okay. Thanks for that.
I think you could have.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Reid. Now, next.
Just ask one more question. Could somebody send me a note about how much money is costing us at the minute per million? Just so I've got it in my head.
Do we have an answer for that, Councillor?
In the capital investment, you mean, per million?
Yeah, the money.
Yeah, I think it's around about £60,000. Yeah, it's probably just a bit below that these days. But I think the MRP assumptions have changed slightly, and interest rates are a bit lower. But it's 50 to 60,000.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they're giving money away these days, aren't they?
Well, it's a good time to invest. Right, thank you very much. Okay, next we have Councillor Dale.
Thank you. Probably like Councillor Reid, we've been doing this for too long in a way that we know an awful lot about the foundation of the Council Act since LGR. Can I just point one or two very simple things first though? I did ask Chris the other day about RPI or CPI, but I just noticed that the external audit fees have gone up by 33% this year, or are due to go up by 33%. So that is an incredibly large amount as against other costs. Can I just go back to Councillor Sanderson and just say thank you. First of all, positive. I am actually positive that the council is doing something about climate change. The issues I have, and they are, there's nothing, this has not been derogatory or anything else like that at all, but it is an enormous piece of work that has to be done, working in partnership with everybody to 2030. The council has put that up in their report to say that actually the cost is going to be difficult and we'll have to meet the challenges. However, we will remind you, going back, is that actually the council has been financially secure for a long, long time. There is the issue about the government putting on a carbon tax, which would cause a lot of alarm, because that actually would put the cost of food up and everything else up. But one of the things that I have had from my residents, who are all very keen, we've been doing lots of carbon work, we've been planting trees for a long time, years in fact, and doing all kinds of work, is that there are a lot of other councils, and I think mostly in Devon, Cornwall, who are doing tremendous amount of work, far ahead. And it's not about them being better than us, it's about us actually learning from them, or learning from other councillors what the best way and how we can all work together on this. So it was just, I have had, since your carbon evening, Green, which was very good, I've actually had emails from people complaining and saying, why haven't they done this? Why haven't they done that? So I will pass them over to you, because I just think we should be helpful. But there's a lot of money, and it said that you're going to require £1 billion to reach the carbon reduction number. But it does say the council, if you recall that the council have actually only got the use of 3%, which input into that. So there is there's tremendous amount of work there. I just don't want to see any waste. So I don't want a response from Councillor Sanderson, get it next week or the budget, or I can talk to you on the phone about it. But can I just say one of the things, and I think Councillor Reid will say that over the years since 2008, we've had well over 100 million plus, and I can't even add it up because I haven't had time to, cut off our revenue budget. And that is an extraordinary amount. And actually the council officers do very, very well. And it's very difficult, but I am concerned about the use of reserves. And I'm also concerned that the council tax, the highest burden of council tax on the GDP is this year. It is enormous. And we need to understand that although we're doing all these wonderful things, it's got to come to an end when actually the council taxpayers can't take any more. And I've got my council tax here rates from 2004 and to date, and they're enormous. So can I just ask that we're careful? It's very difficult to say, oh, we can do this, I get this, this is new, that's new, everything's new, look what we're doing. Absolutely fine, but that is going to have a toll eventually on the availability of council resources to pay for all the revenue and all the capital investment recharges. Just one thing I was going to say was that talking about planning, and you were planning, Jeff, you were talking about that, is I see we've got 450,000 million, 425,000 pounds in for the next 2 years on the Northumberland local plan review. Is that to say we're going to have to start all over again? We haven't got what local plan in place at the moment, but maybe Councillor Riddle could respond to that one, please.
Okay. Well, I think there's two. Thank you, Councillor Day. I think obviously we'll leave the comments on the climate change, which you raised.
That's fine.
The first bit was about sort of council tax use of reserves. I'm going to ask Nick to address that, and then
there's I think there's 4 points I'll just very quickly touch upon. In terms of the audit fees, there's been a Redmond review. So this is a national thing. So I think the review has looked at the audit fees across the country. And I'm afraid, for most authorities, they have gone up. In terms of the use of reserves, I think the use of any reserves are there for a rainy day, and I would probably describe a COVID crisis as a rainy day. What I would also say is that our reserves are healthy and will continue to be healthy. And I think we're in a good position overall to stand the rainiest of days. In terms of the council tax increase, I understand what Councillor Dale is saying, and it is difficult and many families are struggling. We've tried to keep the council tax increase to the absolute minimum, and you'll probably find, I haven't done a sort of detailed study of what other authorities have done, but I would imagine you'll find that ours is one of the lower increases. That said, you know, it would be wonderful to be able to have no increase at all, but unfortunately we're not in that position. What we have to do is do everything we can, and this is what the investment program is about, to regenerate the economy, to make sure that we have a really positive climb out of the COVID crisis, and that families across the county are in a good position with decent jobs to be able to afford council tax, and then us as the local authority will be better funded through that, and maybe in future years we might not need to put council tax up at all. It's also worth pointing out the comprehensive spending review and the fair funding review. So I'm sure that there is a fair funding review happening, and government will be taking account of the costs and the different challenges that authorities across the country are facing. So
I'm sorry, can I just respond? I just want to say what I'm trying to say to you, right, is basically our revenue account pays for our everyday, the things the residents need and require. So the everything, whether it's doing the bins, recycling, whatever, cleaning the streets, to clean streets, everything you can possibly think of, right? And that's what we want to do, is provide a really good service. That's revenue, okay? Now, when you use your reserves up, the more your reserves you use up, and the more capital and your use of to pay for the capital is more revenue cost. The more you do that, the more you're going to cut the revenue, and that means you're going to have to cut over a long period of time. That's what's been happening with this council over the time. You put everything over to the parishes, anything, all these costs, and what you're doing in the meantime is putting the council tax up. So basically, the council the council revenue budget is being cut because of fine capital, but capital is processed. I mean, you're probably I think the oldest capital payment back probably be down to about 1951 now, 1952. So okay. All those years and all those things go forward on and on and on. And in the end, you're going to have to cut things back more and more and more. That people want to have everyday services delivered. So every time you touch those reserves, the reserves are there to support the revenue budget. And it's been there for years and years and years. So I think maybe the very difficult thing about council budget, we get these papers, which we do. We sit down, and I've sat with Jeff Reed arguing over budget numbers. Do you remember, Jeff? And everything, nothing about the costs and the cutbacks and everything else. And we went through everything. Now, although we're having the budget provision today, the discussion, which is great, a lot of people have no idea how these budgets or how local government budgets work. Therefore, everybody can say this, they can say that, they can say the other, and which is fine. I can look at it and pull all kinds of things to pieces and actually say things. I'm more concerned in the end is this burden on the people, the residents we are supporting, and the cutbacks.
Okay.
So I don't want to say any more. I mean, there's some good things. You know, I've been working with the Environment Agency for 2 or 3 years now, and so have the parishes with the money which they've brought in, which is just money for the coastal, the Riding Mill flooding. but I just need to say, I don't want to go to the public and have a real thank you about one other thing, but I've got real concerns about the council tax and the pressures on our residents.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dale. Those concerns are noted. I think if we just go to Councillor Riddle, just to answer that point you made in your opening statement about the planning.
Yes,
the amount of money that's in for the local plan, was that the question, Councillor Dale?
Well, it was answered. It was, sorry, and it was, yeah, it was about the local plan and where we're going to be with that. I think that was.
Yeah, it's just that there's 2 years, the £425,000 in put in for 21, 22 and 22 and 23, right? And we don't have a local plan in place now. Is this a review of the old local plan or the one that's in now, the one that the inspector hasn't reported on, or what? I just want to know, because it's an important issue, because I actually think the local plan will be out of date anyway, because we'll have to revisit our whole area since COVID.
Right, okay, Councillor Dale. Okay, this local plan that's in at the moment has been delivered in record time. As you know, it's held up at the moment with COVID and the inspector. You know, I am pretty confident that we will get that result fairly soon. But as you also are no doubt aware, government did announce that all local plans have got to be living, working documents, and they have to be reviewed regularly. They actually set out in legislation when they have to be reviewed. Because ours isn't actually adopted yet, we get a little bit longer time before we have to do another full review. But every local plan in the country is going to have a review. So, you know, it's nothing unusual for us. This is what the officers again are recommending we put into the budget. And, you know, I haven't tinkered with this. This is their figures. And this will be to do the review that is necessary. Obviously, you know, with the announcement about the Northumberland line, you know, straight away, there's a lot of work to do there. So, you know, there's be lots of consultation again, but it isn't starting from scratch.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question, please?
Yes,
consultation very quickly. Councillor Sanderson, are you there, Councillor Sanderson?
Yes, he's here. Yeah.
Yes, he's there. Sorry, just the 1.5 million for the car park in Hexham, and I'm glad we're providing car parking. However, I'm not sure that you've got the right place. And also, can I just say, I don't think you've consulted with anybody who actually goes and uses that car park. It might have been quite a nice idea to consult with the people or the councillors who actually residents use that car park. I did car parking for many, many years in economic regeneration in Tyndale. One of the problems we had was actually where the car parking was, and everybody wanted obviously a level car parking on the top end. Anyway, I'm not going to, I think that's something that can be discussed. I don't know whether it's too late now, but it was just something that should be noted. I don't want to reply because I know he hasn't consulted. We can discuss that later.
Okay, Glenn, do you want to briefly answer that thing about the car park, and then we'll move on?
Thank you.
You muted, Glenn.
I know. Yeah, well, thank you, and I'm sorry if you felt I wasn't listening to you, Mrs. Dale, Councillor Dale. I can assure you I always listen to you, especially during budget debates, and I'm always wanting to do that. I don't know whether, I don't really know what the question is that you're asking me about the Hexham car parking, other than I know there's been a long period of consultation about where the correct place was necessary, where the right place was going to be, and we discussed this a lot of times, I think, with Hexham Town Council and others. Anyway, we are very proud and pleased to be able to introduce a lot more car parking spaces with electric vehicle charging points in Hexham to encourage more people to visit that lovely town.
Okay, thank you. Right, well, thanks very much, Councillor Dale. Right, Catherine Seymour had a question. Catherine?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I see in this budget that we're spending quite a bit more on services that are very important for our residents. adult service care and children and local services. But I would just wonder, you know, with regards to this, with our very serious climate change, whether we're spending enough. And I'm just looking on page 92 for the FCERM for all of the flood coastal erosion risk management, because Northumberland is very coastal. A lot of Northumberland is very coastal. So I see that there's funds here, and I'm not sure exactly how much has been put in, but there is some external funding. So what is the total number of external funding versus what we're actually putting in for this? I know that up in this area that the whole of the area up here in Berwick has been looked at by NCC and Northumberland Water and the Environment Agency. With what's going on, you know, throughout the country in the south, you know, flooding is very serious, and it's all to do with the climate change. So I just wondered how much, whether we should be putting more money in, or whether you think it's enough.
Okay, so this is the page 92, flood and coastal erosion risk management. There's 2.5 million in the budget. Yeah.
I can pick up that if you like, Chair, because
yes,
I've got quite a lot. So the Northumbria Regional Flood and Coastal Commission brings together all of the partners in flood and coastal erosion management. So that would be the Environment Agency out of their office in Newcastle. It would be Northumbrian Water and a whole heap of other organisations, coastal organisations, the National Farmers Union, and other key sort of players in terms of managing and mitigating flood risk. There's Northumberland as a county is one of the, I think there are 12 authorities in the NRFCC, and we as a county certainly you know, punch above our weight. There's an excellent flood team within the leaders' portfolio who do amazing work working with those key partners. I'm sure the leader might like to say something about Linemouth Beach, which is something that we are you know, we're getting to grips with after you know, decades of it being ignored. And I think the schemes that are set out in the capital programme do attract grant and aid funding from central government. They also use some of the local levy that we and the other authorities put into the pot. And we get extraordinary good value for money from that programme, and thousands of houses are protected, thousands of businesses are protected. So it's a really important piece of work, well delivered by excellent team within local services.
Okay, thank you. Glenn, did you want to say something about the Linemouth Beach there?
Well, I did mention it briefly at the beginning, and we do have, like our climate change team, our flood and flood defence team is small but very, very effective, and we have done some fantastic work. I think we've actually just won an award for the work that we've been doing. I think it's Sea Houses in the pier there.
Yeah.
And which is a good example of why I'm so positive about this council, because we do this good work and we get recognised, and it's good that we should make the most of success rather than picking on other things. So yes, I'm very proud of the fact that we are working on Linemouth Beach to tidy that up, spending millions working with the Environment Agency, and I'm hoping very much that we shall see that restored to the way it should be, as certainly in the next few years.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Right, we'll move on as Councillor Cessford's next. Trevor?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I had my hand up for quite a while, so this actually relates back to a little bit of spurious, random, based on absolutely nothing comment that came out before. Hexham car park. It's been was investigated and studied for year and year and year. So to say that there was no investigation, scrutiny, whatever, consultations, and that is complete, not a load of rubbish, to be honest. I sat with officers meetings after meetings, along with Councillor Homer as well. I see she's got a hand up in that case. And there probably wasn't 1 square foot of land in Hexham that wasn't investigated as to where the possibility of a car park could go. You know, and before the last election, just before the last election, all of a sudden £10 million disappeared from nowhere with no consultations, no plans, no absolutely nothing. Since then, you know, I obviously myself been working with officers and members of this present administration, and we've eventually managed to move it on after decades and decades of nothing at all being done in that particular area. So, you know, while I thank very much the contributions so far of every member that's spoken, I mean, let's just keep it to the truth and just not make random statements based on apropos absolutely nothing.
Thank you. I think I'll leave that there. Councillor Homer?
Yep, just wanted to add, quite right, Councillor Sesford, the discussions on car parking in Hexham go right back to 2014. You know, we've actually been in a car with surveyors going around looking at different options in Hexham for land acquisition. We've read report after report after report on the subject. It's been a Tynedale Local Area Council, it's been a Hexham Town Council. You know, we've consulted with all relevant stakeholders in the town, you know, and I'm just sorry that Councillor Dale has missed all of that going back over the last 7 years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll leave that issue there. Right.
I was named, actually. I think that's the thing.
That's not a technical thing, but I'll let you reply.
Yeah, I think I'm not decrying. What I'm saying is that the biggest thing we have is our towns, main towns, and to make our towns resilient, we need to be working all together with the neighbouring areas, as Councillor Sanderson said, with bus services, etc. And I know when we did the bus station, everybody, all the parishes who use that bus transport system, going from Wylam all the way through, were all consulted, and everybody had an input, because actually it's a major centre. It doesn't just count the Hexham centre. And I think that's what we've said all along. And it's just broadening that consultation out to everybody.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Councillor Dale. Well, I think we've left that issue. We'll on to Councillor Roughhead. Wegger.
Thanks, Chair. Just looking through just a question for Councillor Oliver here. Just looking through the recommendations, I see that what's going to be proposed to council is there's quite a lot of delegation, you know, to the cabinet member in consultation with the relevant lead officer. Presumably, all those sort of changes will be reported back through, put onto the forward plan and go through the scrutiny process, or be reported to the relevant service committee. That's my first question.
Okay, Councillor Oliver?
I think that's probably the case. I can't be absolutely 100% certain. I probably need to go through specific examples, which I can either pick up now or we could take offline and have a separate discussion about. But I think any changes to the sort of delegation process, there are formal processes in place to deal with that. So yeah, I would imagine that they will.
I did actually raise this in my briefing earlier and was reassured that this is quite a normal delegation, and it's required because some of the final figures from government haven't come from government yet. So that's why that delegation exists.
My next thing is on page 4, recommendation 27. We're talking about the corporate quality impact assessment on appendix 8, which, if we look at it on page 57, it's talking about protected characteristics, and I don't see that it mentions anything aside from just employees. It doesn't mention for the wider public anything to do with their marital or civil partner or relationship status, when the debt recovery policy on page 172 specifically mentions marital status as being an issue for that specific policy. So I don't know why we're not mentioning it there. Then continuing on with the corporate equality impact assessment, on page 72, it gives an option for the officers who've put this report together, and I appreciate it's quite a comprehensive report and covers quite a lot of the issues, but that's not been marked. So I think that needs to be obviously amended to be marked which option is relevant to this report, because I see the other equality impact assessment later on does have one of the boxes ticked, but this one doesn't. Then my other thing that I had was just a comment in some of the narrative within the appendices of given background information and things like that. I would just say this before it goes to full council at the end of the month. Maybe this just needs to be tidied up and just checked if dates and names of organisations are factually correct on things like that, because I think in a corporate document that is relevant with finances, we should be using the legal names of organisations, not just what we commonly call things. So I'll just leave that as a comment, and I won't get into the specifics because I've got quite a few on that, and hopefully those could be picked up and rectified before full council.
Okay, thanks, Greg. And if you do have any specifics of organisations, if you can ping that to us, and then obviously that can be looked at. Thanks. Right, we've got, Jeff Reed's back. Jeff.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. It's just looking on Appendix 7, 54, 55. I meant to say this before, and it's kind of I guess there's about £300,000 reduction in travel and subsistence budgets. Does this signal the council's plan to stay remote, to not travel as much? Obviously, we're not being paid for it. Sending people to conferences, is that a subtle hint that things aren't going to return to anything like pre-COVID activity levels?
Okay, thanks. Councillor Oliver?
Thank you, Councillor Reid. I think it's probably anything like pre-COVID activity levels is probably a little bit too far, but certainly I think there is an expectation that things will not completely return to pre-COVID activity levels. I think that people have got used to different ways of working. There are certainly a lot of meetings that I would have previously travelled to County Hall for that I'd be glad to do sitting here in front of my screen. And I'm sure that applies to officers right across all areas of council business. But there are obviously areas where I would much prefer to be sitting, facing people, seeing the whites of their eyes, and having that important human contact. So I think there's a balance, but I think the HR team and the teams designing the refurbishment of County Hall are taking all of that into account, and that's but yes, we will make savings on travel expenses as a result of COVID.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Right, I don't see anybody else with their hands up. No. Okay, well, thank you very much. That's a very productive meeting, and some detailed examination of the budget. Thank you all for attending. So on the agenda, that's moving on. Any urgent business? I've not been told of any, so therefore I'll call the meeting to an end. Thank you all for attending. I look forward to seeing you all soon, either remotely or in person. Okay, cheerio.
Chair.
Thanks. Bye-bye.